Hi.
Short Bus Debate Club. It's a bus rolling.
I can get on board. Hello, I'm Darren Jolly.
It's time to get this short bus started. So let's roll and on with the show. All right, you lucky people who have chosen to subscribe to our show and are getting exclusive content at this point.
We're going to make this worth it for you. We're going to rattle on like the clatterbone of a goose's ass about music.
This is part 2 of Can It Really Be a Band? Or something along those lines. I haven't quite figured out the title. We'll talk about that later. But
it's kind of like those movies. It's a working title production.
So at the end of the last segment, we were talking about super bands and the Traveling Mulberries specifically.
So I'm going to step on Brian's dick here for just a second and go off on this question for me, because he asked about, because like he suggested, this is the truth, Roy Orbison died like so quickly after the band released their stuff. So ultimately, how they, just quickly, because I like to do my tangents and put shit in context, and history's like the key to everything, knowing who you are, where you're at, what you're doing. But when they were making the single for Free Falling, George Harrison and fucking Roy Orbison and Jeff Lynne and fucking Bob Dylan are sitting in Tom Petty's studio while he's going through this process. Imagine that. Just put that in your fucking head for just a second, where you've got like the least famous guy is Jeff Lynne, and he's like the singer-songwriter for the Electric Light Orchestra. I mean, this is a fucking huge. These are the immortals, gods, like a veritable songwriters Mount Rushmore.
At least demigods.
Yeah, well, that's at the very least, yeah. So they're sitting there, and I'm not sure if it was End of the Line or Handle with Care. I think it was Handle with Care, an incredible fucking song. Green Sky Bluegrass did a really nice live version of it. You can find it on YouTube. But they laid on this track, and it's supposed to be the B-side for Tom Petty's Free Falling. And Free Falling obviously was a great song. The single did monstrous. And that goofy girl in the fucking half pipe on MTV, going back and forth. But that was when MTV used to show music videos. They don't do that anymore. So, but either way, when they finished laying down the track, they're like, we can't use this as a B-side. Sorry, Tom. You're going to have to figure out something else. And of course, like, he was in full agreement. I'm sure they were all laughing about it at that point in time, and they started to collaborate on it. But the way that the question was approached at the beginning is supergroups, right? I think that one of the keys, and I'm sure there's an exception, we could find an exception somewhere either in the present or down the road that would make me rethink the argument that I'm about to make. That's what makes this stuff kind of fun anyway. But in supergroups, nobody's cutting their fucking teeth in a supergroup. They've already sort of like established their position.
They're superstars, yeah. At least to some degree. Like you said, Jeff Lynne was ELO.
Yeah. Bob Dylan was not Robert Zimmerman. He was Bob fucking Dylan.
I mean, Bob Dylan is Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
But I mean, Jeff Lynne, he was the least known out of the bunch.
Yeah, and he was a monster. They had all gone through the process of yes.
So that's the super part, I think, is at least maybe they should just call them star groups.
I don't mean whatever, Okay, so like Oysterhead, like as a super band, you got Trey Anastasio, you got the drummer for what's the drummer's name from fucking the Police, Stuart Copeland, and you got fucking the bass player from fucking Primus.
Les Claypool.
Yeah, I was trying to say it, but I was trying to say it in Les Claypool talk. Les Claypool speak, right? He's got a kind of a way of
but I mean, wouldn't huge. You consider Temple of the Dog
a super band too?
Right.
Okay, so but that's an interesting thing, because Temple of the Dog was an iteration that was constructed as trying to sort of like pay homage to the memory of a fallen friend, right? Oysterhead was a collaboration between three fucking weirdos that just wanted to. I'm not really sure, like, in a situation like that, I'm not really sure who you'd ever bring in to replace, but I think that you can, because again, you're not cutting teeth on what it is that they're doing anyway. You can have some other incredible percussionist come in and sit in.
Okay, so then your argument is if it is a super band, you can bring someone else in to replace someone else because everyone is already a superstar.
But there's nuance to it, right?
Okay.
So I'm saying that. So like I said with what was the first one that you said? Not
Temple of the
Dog. Like that's a unique sort of situation, right? Oysterhead, they had specific intentions, but it depends on the iteration, right? So that's what I'm saying. When you're talking about the traveling Wilburys, you're talking about like the best singer-songwriters of all time, not just of an era, of all fucking time. So like, even though Roy Orbison, fell off his motorcycle and bounced his fucking head off the fucking curb and died, which was a horrible fucking thing, I think that because of the nature of like these singer-songwriters that love the concept of singer-songwriting, I think you could bring other people into that. But that would mean that you're not, like things like the Handle with Care stuff, like you're gonna write new stuff overall, because that's the whole point. It's like you get together with these giants and you sit around a proverbial campfire with them and you just shit out fucking, platinum,
Okay, so I'm just stepping back because I want to make sure I understand this.
Yeah.
So it's okay to do in the Traveling Wilburys.
Yes.
Because they are all superstars in and of themselves, separately and together.
Yes. And because of the nature of what it is that they did.
Right, because they were just trying to create music.
How they came together, yeah. Okay.
You can't do the same thing with Temple of the Dog.
It's harder for me. So like if they had that, if at another point in time, like they were like 30 years down the road.
Well, right, because when Temple of the Dog started, they weren't a super group, right?
No, but Pearl Jam was already pretty well. You're right. Nobody was. Yeah, dude. Actually, if I like, there was something I was watching recently. They made more money off Temple of the Dog than they did off their not Pearl Jam their album had not come out yet. They were in the recording process of it at that point. I think 10 was, or like the old A&R things that you were talking about. There was promotion things that they were dealing with. They hadn't fully laid everything down. I believe Soundgarden had already released an album at that point in time, but they were not as well known. Singles had come out, and there were songs that were on the single soundtrack that like pushed some of these thoughts out into the front.
Such a horrible movie.
No, I mean, I've never seen the movie, but I've owned like 4 copies of the fucking soundtrack because it was so awesome. But like the fucking Mother Love Moan songs that were on that.
Maybe that's where I heard that song.
Yeah, both Crown of Thorns and Chloe Dancer are on that soundtrack.
Okay, so it says the Temple of the Dog is a spinoff of Mother Love Bone, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, and Green River. Mm-hmm. It's not a spinoff of any of those.
No, that's an improper.
And this is Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But it says that their members were Chris Cornell, Jeff Ament, Matt Cameron, Stone Gossard, Mike McCready, and Eddie Vedder. So the only 2 that I would consider super out of that, what I called a super group, are Chris Cornell and Eddie Vedder. Am I wrong?
I mean, if you know that music, I know all of those other people. I mean, like really, 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 really well. But I mean, having said that, yeah, you're right. If you're talking to normal everyday people are not going to know who Stone Gossard is. They don't know. They don't know that he played rhythm guitar for them before. They don't know that he played rhythm guitar for another band in between, and that he has played rhythm guitar now for Pearl Jam since 1992. I mean, nobody fucking knows that except for dorks or people that are really into that. Or just really into music in general. I'm sure, like if we talked to my old boss Brian, he would know all of them, but that's because he fucking is the biggest music dork in the history of the fucking universe.
So okay, I really want to continue the supergroup thing.
So the 30-year point that I was making, right? Chris Cornell is dead now, right?
Yes.
But if his daughter came on that and sang,
no,
I'd be okay with that.
Why?
Because she can sing, and because there's
You weren't
homage
okay
there.
with the fucking Jason Bonham thing with Led Zeppelin?
That is a totally you're talking about the difference between a collected group, right? And Led Zeppelin is fucking Led Zeppelin. Nobody gets to sit in on Led Zeppelin except for Led Zeppelin.
No, that's fair.
Now we didn't talk
That,
about,
but that's what I was talking about in definitions.
But to be clear, we didn't talk about that on.
No, we didn't talk about it in the first part. No.
But John Bonham's a unique case because he's a fucking drummer. You know, he's not a fucking front man. He's not Eddie Van Halen. He is one of the top 5 probably best drummers of all time. Definitely changed the way that drummers organized, like weird syncopated rhythms that were outside of the normal, you know. I mean, he did Moby Dick, man. He was a bad motherfucker, you know. But Jason Bonham can sit in with them like for one night, but no, Jason Bonham cannot come and play drums for Led Zeppelin. That's why they did the Page Plant thing. That's why they never read.
But the Page Plant thing was bullshit too.
But it still was not them trying to be.
No, but it was right. So it was Jimmy Page and Robert Plant.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
And they were saying, "Fuck it, we're not Led Zeppelin.
Yeah,
we're gonna play some Led Zeppelin songs. We're also gonna rip off some fucking R&B."
And Alison Krauss is gonna sit in every now and again.
Yeah. Okay. So I dig that definition. I'm good there.
All right.
Wow.
Thanks, bitch.
You know, I disagree with you. You fucking argue. I fucking agree with you. You talk shit.
Well, you only disagreed with me until you understood what I was saying. So.
All right. So you talked about Stone Gossard, right?
Yeah.
And you said nobody would know, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't. Apparently his first band was Green River, which I've never even fucking heard of. Do you know who they are?
No. It makes me want to go, Green River.
Okay, so Green River
is over Jordan. Oh, sorry.
Green River flowed into Mother Love Bone.
I get that. They flowed into Mother Love Bone, yes.
And then I'm guessing, well, it says he was also a member of Temple of the Dog, but Temple of the Dog had to come before Pearl Jam.
It did. So that it was all.
Or during, like at the first part.
A lot of things happened really, really quick during that time period. So Andrew Wood dies in 1990 of a heroin overdose. They had brought, so they flew Eddie up. Well, Eddie flew up from he was living in California. He flew up. He tried out for them. It had pretty much been set in stone, but again, 10 was not out yet. So they're recording. And something happened to where there was a communication between some of the guys that had played in Mother Love Bone and the guys that were in Pearl Jam, and 2 people that were in Soundgarden, but not everybody in Soundgarden. So like the guitar player, and he got really butthurt about not being invited into.
Was that Robert Trujillo?
I can't. I know who he is when I see him, but I can't remember their names right off the top of my head.
I don't know. I'm just spitting out fucking random weird names.
They made so much fucking money off of, and they did not intend to make a bunch of money.
Dude, that Temple of the Dog fucking album is great.
Yeah, it was really,
it's badass.
Yeah,
and like
Strike
I said,
is like one of the biggest songs.
Only 2 of those guys I would consider super.
Yeah, Kristen.
But
Eddie, yeah.
I know that it was a composition of several different bands. Now that doesn't always make a band super.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the reason in my head somehow is that I'm considering them super is because, well, that's part of it. But I mean, it's Eddie Vedder and Chris Cornell. But then the fact that that album fucking sold as much as it did.
Because those guys were getting all these royalties off of it. And the guys in Soundgarden, you know, it wasn't until like Black Hole Sun came out that they really got, you know, had a big payday, I think, probably.
That's probably about right. I don't know for sure, but I mean, I'm still thinking that Robert Trujillo was the guy that was butthurt.
Yeah, but they didn't know. They had no. Soundgarden just didn't. And like the interesting thing is when I listen to people that know music and know music theory, and they want to talk about a Seattle band that's the most interesting and most innovative, it's always Soundgarden. Like And not just because of the way that the music was structured with those guys, but because of the way that Chris Cornell did these weird vocal stylings on the side of it. Like they were just
dude, and everybody,
smarter than most people were ready for.
He was awesome, and I rarely like somebody that says, fuck it, I'm going to go do my own thing. I mean, Sting is probably one example where he was okay. And I didn't mean to demean Sting in any way, shape, or form. But compared to the Police, I like the Police stuff better than the solo stuff. Mm-hmm. I liked Soundgarden stuff better than Cornell's solo stuff.
Mm-hmm. And better than Audioslave? Yeah, right? No?
No.
Audioslave.
I like Audioslave better than Soundgarden. And Black Hole Sun is, I mean, Spoonman, that entire fucking album.
Spoonman had a measure of commercial success, but of course that was just them talking about heroin.
Well, and there's the one, I can't even remember. When I first bought my DVD player, they played it, and it was the, hold on a second, talk, and I'll find the song.
But it is interesting to think about, them as like a pre-super group, because you don't generally get that where this thing sort of comes together beforehand and it just sort of like falls into place.
No, it was Black Hole Sun, the song that we're talking about.
Okay.
But
won't you come?
The ones before that were just as good.
But that's where they got their payday.
But I wouldn't consider Soundgarden a super band. However, Audioslave is a super band.
Because that had
Tom Morello.
Guitar player from
and I think Slash was there.
Did somebody from Tool sit in with them a little bit?
Yeah.
Who?
Fucker. Hold on.
Not the drummer.
I'm almost positive it had to be.
Danny Carey is the best drummer on the planet. Nobody else even fucking counts. There's Danny Carey and everybody else just fucking kind of.
No, maybe not. It was Chris Cornell, Tom Morello, which he's one of my favorite guitarists ever.
Definitely a weirdo and very smart.
Tim Commerfel on bass.
How did that go?
Commerfel. And Brad Wilk, which I'm guessing is percussion.
Where did Commerfel come from? Because if you're going to call it a supergroup, it can't just be because of those two.
Well, I don't know. I just fucking called Temple of the Dog a supergroup.
But then we're sort of like, it was a
circling.
It's a supergroup before it's a supergroup.
Okay, so Brad Wilk was a member of Rage Against the Machine.
Okay. Maybe they were all Rage.
And he is a drummer.
I think if I remember.
So maybe everybody except Chris Cornell was Rage.
Yeah, and they just left because I think Morello was tired of. I know he's a very nice guy. He never says anything really negative about Zach Dillon.
And the bassist was
from Rage. Yeah.
Well, no, dude, he said he's too political. I can't do it anymore. Not verbatim, but
of course, because Tom Morello's way fucking political. He's a very political motherfucker.
But I mean, Zach De La Rocha was fuck you. Oh, I won't do what you told me.
Yeah, he wrote, particularly the first album. The first album was just so you gotta get it together, man.
Dude, like and that
man.
I don't give a fuck what anybody says. Nobody knew him before. But as far as I'm concerned, that is a super group, and I am extremely ashamed of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for waiting. And not, they still didn't fucking get in this year.
What?
Rage.
Rage. Oh, yeah, well, but it's because of, I mean, we know
the
why.
political
it's because,
part.
I mean, they've said some things that, and let's be honest, like, there's nothing that Rage says that isn't factual.
True.
Yeah.
No,
not true. Straight facts. They're speaking truth because it's rooted in facts. I love it, dude. There's a difference between
you accuse me of being fucking semantic
only
all
when
the
it
time.
comes to stuff like people use words like truth and facts, and I don't like that using those words interchangeably. They're not interchangeable.
No, they're not.
They're speaking truth because they're using
A
facts.
fact is a point of fucking data,
Yeah.
and the truth
Like
is
when
the truth.
when he says the CIA killed Malcolm X and
Point of data.
and the CIA killed Martin Luther King. He even actually says when they killed Malcolm X, he tried to blame it on the Islams. You know, I mean, he says everything. You know, did you know that during that time period, because we haven't had enough political stuff in this one, there were 7 people on the board of Islam's Nation of Islam's board. I think there were 10 members on the board. 7 of them were given intel to the FBI and the CIA during that time period when they assassinated Malcolm X.
To be clear, the Nation of Islam, and maybe that's why my fucking Islamic professor didn't want me to categorize the two together, is because of what you just said. But to be clear, the Nation of Islam and Islam are different. Doesn't have shit to do with music. But
why did he go down that rabbit hole then? Because he wasn't a Nation of Islam guy. I mean, he was a 1990s Nation of Islam guy. But, I mean, dude, the name had been, I mean, for anybody that knew anything about history, we should probably start talking about music again pretty quick here. But for anyone that knew anything about music history, I mean, about history, not music history in this case, anybody that listened to Rage Against the Machine should know that the Nation of Islam had some pretty, you know, or you just go watch, you know, you just go watch your favorite director's version of Malcolm X. I know you love him.
Well, and generally,
that was a great film.
Okay, but I mean, generally speaking, if you've got something where somebody can leverage you, and when I say someone, I mean the fucking CIA or the government.
Yeah,
they're going to leverage you. And so if you've got family and they say, oh, well, you know what? You've got a brother who's in prison and we can get him out early. Or if you don't do this, we're going to kill your fucking daughter.
Yeah, like when they started trying to blow up his house and all that shit. But they were doing it to people inside the Nation of Islam as well, probably.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying is that those 9...
There's vulnerabilities that they all had, and it was probably used against them so that they could become tools of the.
And I'm not saying structure. That's an excuse, because at some point you got to say "fuck you," and you know, warn your fucking, warn your parents, warn your fucking kids.
Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. That was a great. I remember Travis Little. I ran into him at the Mammoth.
I loved his fucking sister.
Events. Did you really?
Dude.
The Mammoth Event Center. That was before the Fillmore bought it and changed it over. And we went down there. Rage was opening up for Cypress Hill. And of course, Cypress was taking their 6-foot bong hits up on the fucking stage and shit. But I had just gotten the cassette, Rage's, you know, that first album's cassette the week before. And I was like, these guys are opening up? This is a fucking badass fucking album. And Travis Little had his fucking dreadlocks, you know, just hilarious, man. But like, he was, I think that his
sister was Mindy, right? Am I thinking of the wrong Travis?
The wrong Travis, yeah.
Oh, I'm thinking Sargent.
No, that is, yeah, Travis. Yeah, that's the other one. Yeah, that's the Mormons.
Yeah.
The Mormons, not Mormons.
Anyway.
I caught his dad cheating on his mom.
Who? Sargent? Little.
Travis Sargent.
Well, I don't care. I loved his sister.
Yeah.
And she was my drug dealer's girlfriend in
1989, somewhere around there. Yeah. The 80s. That was when the first Top Gun came out. Before Tom Cruise was an old man.
So, I know we've sort of strayed, except for the fact that Rage is a supergroup, or at least now, because Tom Morello.
But you see again, you're like turning them into a supergroup based on the past. Now that they went and did this other thing on the side, I don't think you can say that.
No, you can't. They weren't a supergroup to begin with.
They just became a supergroup later on because of all these other things?
Well, they weren't formed as a supergroup. However, I consider them a fucking super group. Not a super group. Right?
Semantics, right? Semantics. This is where we are.
Well, I mean, we can roll back because, like I said, Tom Morello and Chuck D went back and redid all of the fucking Rage Against the Machine shit, and it was a fucking solid album, except
Chuck D was doing vocals?
yeah.
Oh, I never listened to that. Now that's a
So you didn't fucking listen to me earlier when I said that shit?
I heard you talking about it, but I don't think I quite computed. I don't think I even realized that was what it was. That's a superish group. I mean, that's superish, you know.
It was a.
Who else was doing the music? Was it just Rage with Chuck D?
No, it wasn't Rage. I mean, because Zach wasn't involved.
I understand that, but the other members, like there were an Audioslave. Was it the Audioslave people that just went over and did it with Chuck D doing vocals?
No, I don't think it was Audioslave. Hold on, I'm finding it.
And Chuck D is a good option because at least he's like, it's one thing to glom on to the politicality of Rage. If you're not political, but Chuck D, 911 is a joke in your town. He was a political motherfucker. We actually had set him up
from the very beginning.
He was going to come and speak at Metro, and he was like 9 hours late to his fucking talk.
Do you still have his contact info?
It was before I started doing all that stuff. It was just something that I heard about, and Jason had been bitching about it. So, like, that is a dick move. If you're going to get paid a fucking what do you call those when you're a speaker?
Appearance fee.
Well, but there's specific things.
Speaker fee.
You're not helping.
Political fee.
You're not helping me at all right now. Honorarium is the word that I was. When you're going to get paid an honorarium to come and speak at a college, and this is like pre-political correctness college stuff. So, well, shit happens sometimes. But Chuck D should have showed up. That wasn't very nice, Chuck D.
No, it fucking was bullshit. Really.
So while you're looking, I think that Seattle got the shit end of like demonstrating how if you have a vocalist that dies or somebody that dies in a band. So Nirvana with Kurt Cobain, when he's gone, nobody ever thought about coming and being a frontman for fucking Nirvana after that. Like you said, Alice in Chains, Lane Staley was a brutal situation. Soundgarden / Audioslave, no Chris Cornell, no fucking dice, bro. Mother Love Bone, again, Andrew Wood.
Well, you can't slash Audioslave, and the only reason that I'm saying that is because Soundgarden was Seattle, Audioslave was not.
Can I just?
Sorry, go ahead.
Keep what you're looking for, motherfucker.
Keep going.
So Mother Love Bone. Now, Mother Love Bone is kind of the coolest example of how respectful they were about it, because when Andrew Wood died, and they had like I said, Amit, the bassist, and Gossard, they were both part of Mother Love Bone. When they came over and they filled in the spaces that ultimately, when they brought a young man up from California by the name of Eddie Vedder, it was not going to be called Mother Love Bone. It was called Pearl Jam, and that's what it became. And that was an out of respect thing. And then another one that this is not a Seattle band, but it's a band that people relate to Seattle because there was kind of an angstiness to them that reflected the grunge ideals. And you had this really incredible vocalist that was at the front of it, and who ended up dying of a heroin overdose himself. But STP, Stone Temple Pilots, was Scott Weiland. After he died, that Chester Bennington was a frontman briefly, but I'm happy to say, not because Chester Bennington ended up fucking killing himself, but that was a short-lived thing, because Scott Weiland's vocal positions, especially Core, like everything that came off of Core. Core was my favorite album.
I want to roam through your wicked garden.
It was a good album, cover to cover too, which you just don't get that very often. So, but these are all bands that understood that when you have a core component to a band, like the thing that drives the band to the front in the first place, like I said, the tip of the spear. If the tip of the spear is dulled, it's over. You can't do it without those people. Like when Foo Fighters, what's the drummer?
Taylor Hawkins.
No, not the Foo Fighters drummer. The drummer from Nirvana, the one that everybody in the world loves now. The front man for the Foo Fighters.
Dave Grohl.
Dave Grohl. Yeah, Dave Grohl was never going to. And the bassist, that guy, I can't remember what his name is. Nimitz was a bitch something. I can't remember the bassist for.
He was from somebody from Nirvana.
And he was Kurt Cobain's best friend for a long time. They played in several bands together. They grew up together. There was never going to be a Nirvana part 2. You know.
Oh, dude, that fucking band is even better than I thought. So the one I was just looking up
thing or what?
Is Prophets of Rage, and it's Tom Morello,
okay,
Chuck D, and Be Real from Cypress Hill.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't even realize Be Real was in it, but
I'm gonna have to go listen to it. Cypress has, I mean, their second album was fine, but their first album was really the best, the one with Pigs on it and Latin Lingo.
So is that a super band?
Yeah, that's got to be. You have to identify that as a super band. Yeah, Cypress stood on their own. Fucking Chuck D with the
Public Enemy
with the time clock guy.
Yeah. Most Def. No, not Most Def.
Definitely not Most Def.
No. Most Def is fucking awesome. Oh fuck. I know.
Yeah, I can see him in my head, of course, because you can see those fucking big dumbass clocks that he had hanging from his neck all the time. Sorry, dude. It was a 1980s thing. I know. I get it. But and of course, Tom Morello being in the band, that's a super group. Public Enemy #1.
Oh, dude. This doesn't have shit to do with music.
Flavor Flav, dude.
Yeah. Flavor Flav. He's got writing credits on a lot of the Public Enemy songs, and I've got a really hard time believing that he fucking wrote anything, including his name.
Flavor Flav?
Yeah.
You think that it was just somebody else and he was just taking credit for it the whole time?
I think maybe I don't know how it worked. Maybe he did fucking write it. I just don't picture that dude fucking writing 911 or
joke in your
town. Okay, so you were just talking about Seattle.
Yeah. Was I? Yeah, I went down a list of all the people that I thought, and I think that they understand the concept of when a thing is no longer that thing, that you have to give it a different designation because it has to reflect what that thing is. When Pearl Jam was Pearl Jam, it was not Mother Love Bone, right? You don't put Chester Bennington at the front. Again, I know that that's not Seattle, but there was definitely a connection between, and they all talked shit about each other, which was just dumb as fuck, but that's a different story for a different day.
No, and I know you mentioned like STP, and actually out of all of those guys, and I fucking loved Soundgarden, and I loved Temple of the Dog. Pearl Jam was okay. Nirvana I liked, but out of all of the bands I just talked about, I would have put Nirvana at the bottom. I'm not saying we need to rate anything. I'm just saying that.
Then why are you rating things?
just to give you some context, because you mentioned STP, and out of all of those bands, I think they were my favorite one out of that bunch. But then I probably would have put Audioslave above STP. It doesn't fucking matter. I just was trying to give some context.
So I asked you a question. So if you aren't trying to rate them, then why are you rating them? Because you're trying to give me some context that is.
Oh, now you completely fucked me up. I'm sitting here looking up Public Enemy shit. I'm fucking trying to talk to you about something, and now I am completely fucking lost.
Public Enemy in Seattle, like what?
No, Public Enemy doesn't have shit to do with Seattle.
Those were so you had been looking for that, and I was just trying to fill up some airspace there.
Well, right, but we had talked about the fact that we needed to talk about Seattle, and
Public Enemy just came up randomly because of the fact that we made the contact to Chris Cornell through Tom Morello on Audioslave, and then that traversed into Rage Against the Machine and.
Yeah, but you're talking like fucking 15 minutes back. That's fine. I appreciate you trying to guide me through my fucking stupidity.
It's tough to do, I gotta tell you.
So, so out of what was considered grunge, and I don't know if STP was truly considered grunge, they were my favorite band. But that is again one of those guys, and Chester Bennington, Linkin Park or fucking whatever that other band I said earlier.
Linkin Park. I think you're
right. He had no fucking right to try to stand in front of that band and do vocals. And maybe somebody said, hey, let's do it. Maybe it was the record company. I have no idea how that shit works. But again, they shouldn't have called it Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Just as a kind of a funny side note, again, not a very funny side note, because it's right before he killed himself, which was about a year before Chris killed himself, right? I mean, it was literally like within a 12-month time period that they both did that. Chester Bennington and Chris Cornell did a live version of Hunger Strike somewhere. So there were all these weird, there were all these, you can find it. It's not good. I mean, don't go look for it. I mean, like when I listen to Hunger Strike, I only want to hear it in one way, and that's with those two vocal voices crossing, like, and with all those guys behind them backing it, because Chris with the lead and then Eddie sort of being pinched at a close space right behind. It's just perfect. It's awesome. It's one of the coolest, like, accidental recorded. I mean, just like the Wilburys. I don't think it was something anybody knew was going to turn into what it turned into.
Maybe that's what you need to do, is just kind of fuck around and start spinning some shit. Because, I mean, really, and we talked about this a little bit, I mean, Rick Rubin started his shit in a fucking NYU dorm, dude.
Is that how he, really? Who was the first person he produced? Like, that was big?
Dude, I want to say it was it was LL Cool J, because he pulled Russell Simmons in, and then LL Cool J, and then the Beastie Boys, or maybe it was the Beasties and LL, but
it was all those people back then.
I mean, he started it, and like I said, a fucking NYU dorm room, and
the name of the first band that he produced was the Pricks.
Oh, well, he was big into punk rock at that point.
Hose. The first big one was I Need a Beat with LL Cool J, and he had Beastie Boys right behind it. And then Run DMC. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but he didn't get Run DMC, I don't think, until he got fucking Russell Simmons. And then the only reason he got Run DMC was because
of the connection.
The brother thing. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean brother like black. I mean actual brothers.
They're siblings?
Fuck yeah.
Run DMC and fucking Russell Simmons?
Yeah, it's Russell Simmons and Daryl Simmons. He's the D from DMC.
I had no fucking idea about that. That's kind of cool. Interesting. You learn something new every day. See, I dog on you pretty bad, but I give you props when it's time, motherfucker. So since we're going down, since the Rick Rubin connection came up, we're gonna reiterate something that Brian brought up at the very beginning, because we didn't really talk about it very much. A lot of the stuff we're talking about has like a high degree of musicality, and I don't want to imply that this other group doesn't have a high degree of musicality, because they actually did play songs with instruments and sang and stuff like that too. But the Beastie Boys stuff that they got most of their notoriety for was the rap, But once MCA died, May 4th, May the 4th be with you. Yeah, 2012. He died on Star Wars Day in 2012.
May the 4th be with you.
There's no Beastie Boys without all three of those guys. Like they were a unit, and it's funny, you're never gonna see them do it now anyway, because the amount of energy that they had to like maintain on the stage when they were doing their performances was fucking, like, I'll go back, because a lot of that stuff's only on video, but you go back and see like this shit, like from like 1998 when they're in fucking like Sweden or something like that, and they were fucking crazy, dude, all over the place.
Well,
And
dude, I
unique.
mean, if you just look at, and this isn't one of their best songs, but I think it was their first video, was Fight for Your Right to Party. And it's funny is that Rick Rubin was in that fucking video.
Was he in the video?
Yeah. He's wearing a Slayer t-shirt.
Dude, he always wears weird T-shirts, man. He is a fucking weirdo, dude. Super fucking cool guy. But what a unique dude.
They had a lot of fucking energy in that video, and I don't think that it was like a fake thing. I think that probably some fucking guy was like, okay, we're gonna do this video, and I need you here and you here, and they were like,
no,
fuck you, and just went crazy. I could be wrong, but I mean, yeah, there's no way the Beasties, you couldn't throw a third guy in there and make them the Beasties anymore.
Which they said it when Adam died. I mean, they said it's done, it's over, like in the form that it is, you know. And that's, I mean, I saw him live 3 times. I saw him at the Coliseum, which was kind of a weird thing to do. I saw him at Fiddlers for Lollapalooza one year, and then I saw him at fucking McNichols. That was, and they played. That was the last
inside.
Yeah, and that was the last show that they played. Tribe played all three. I think all three. I know they played at least at Fiddlers, and but it was the last time that they were going to do a show with Tribe, because I think they'd figured out that
dude was about to die.
Old boy was having his diabetes was really fucking catching up with him, and
so that must have been fairly late. That was
it was.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, Connor's younger brother was old enough to be at the show, so it had to have been 98. Yeah, probably 98. Fucking awesome show. The one at the Coliseum, I went with that Steph girl, and she was crazy. She's like, I'm gonna go fucking jump over the barricade. I gotta get down on the floor. And I was already fucking just like a dumb shit old man at that point in time. So she went and ran and jumped the barricade and got down on the floor. We found her later on, but
I hope. I mean, you should have fucking tried to expound on that a little bit alive. I'm assuming.
What do you mean?
You found her later.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. We're all partying, you know.
Right.
I mean, we all came together. We all left together.
Okay,
know?
That's good.
So.
Never leave a person behind.
Yeah. Never leave a soldier. That's for sure. They were great live, both them and who is Tribe. And when Tribe is never, and I told you that kid when we were talking about Tribe in that last episode, there was a kid that reached out to Q-Tip and was trying to get them to.
I thought you said it was his son.
It wasn't his son. It was somebody. Maybe no, it wasn't the other. No, it's just, but it's a young kid that's doing rap on YouTube and stuff like that.
Trying to get him to do more political shit.
Well, he wanted Q-Tip to come out and do this thing, and Q-Tip kind of just hasn't been doing much anything for a little while. But when old boy died in Tribe, that was in a Tribe too. So I mean, they were not going to go back and, you know.
If I had any regrets about not seeing anybody live, it would have been the Beastie Boys and Rage Against the Machine. And I tried to fucking see them when they were here in Denver the last time at the fucking GOP.
Oh, that's right. They played it. It wasn't the GOP. It was the Democratic National Convention.
I thought it was the GOP that they were protesting.
They were protesting both sides. This is fucking Zach De La Rocha. Zach De La Rocha is like, all you fucking formal political motherfuckers are a bunch of you. And Democrats are worse because they fucking try to pretend like they care about people, but they don't give a fuck. Did I say that, or was that somebody else?
That might have been Zach De La Rocha.
I do very good imitations. Fife Dog, yeah, that's right. He's the one that passed away.
Yeah, so I'm still going to stick to my guns and say that I feel the same way. Like, if the essence of the band is no longer there, and whatever that is, and I guess maybe that's up to the fucking person who's listening to it. But, you know, like we said, okay, well, Eddie Van Halen was the essence, so fuck it. He can throw in David Lee Roth, he can throw in Sammy Hagar, he can throw in whoever the fuck he wants. And it's still Van Halen. You know, you can't replace the Beasties, you can't replace any of the Beatles, you can't replace Led Zeppelin. Apparently, I think I kind of agree with you on the fucking super band thing. You know, as far as, well, at least with the Traveling Mulberries, I mean,
We need to see it play out a little bit more. It's kind of an interesting thing because you're going to have different formations, and it's going to always be about context.
right.
Always.
But I think I'm still like, Alice in Chains is not Alice in Chains anymore. Sublime is not Sublime. STP is not STP. Audioslave can never ever be Audioslave, and I don't even think anybody's gonna fuck around and try.
Yeah. Let me give you some examples of some funny ones that tried to sort of read. So we were talking about, of course, the one we were talking about off was Journey. So Journey's had like 600 different people try to be their front man, but there's a guy from the Philippines named Arno Renda or something like that. Pineda. That's what it is. Pineda probably is what it comes out to be, but I don't think they put it on Wikipedia right. But he's been with them now, I think, for like 16 years or something like that. So
Yeah, but he isn't that the one where he fucking won it off of like a fucking TV show or some
I think
shit?
that's where they found him. That's where they found him at. So Van Halen, after Sammy Hagar, they tried to use some guy named Gary Sharon from 97 to 99, and that didn't turn out well. Motley Crue, Vince Neil left in 92, and somebody named John Corbari. They tried to use them from 92 to 96, but that was really, really bad. Dale brought this up early, but I'll speak into the microphone so people can actually hear it being said. After Ozzy Osbourne was pushed out of Black Sabbath in 79, Ronnie James from Dio. Brian was talking about that too, and he was speaking into the microphone, so you probably. And then Ian Gillan from Deep Purple. We talked about John Anderson from Yes. We've talked about Sublime. There was a couple other ones that were maybe they're not, but that one with Vince Neil, like I don't like Motley Crue, but Vince Neil is. There are, even for bands that are fucking horrible, there are certain things that have to be part of who and what they are.
Okay,
Otherwise, they're not.
so the only reason I know this is because I watched some bullshit movie on Netflix. I think it's called The Dirt.
Dale watched that. He told me about that too.
Nikki Sixx
Uh-huh.
and I think Tommy Lee were the two founding members of the band.
Uh-huh.
And then they pulled in Mick Mars.
Uh-huh.
And then they finally found Vince
The
Neil.
front man, yeah. Uh-huh.
So Vince Neil was the last guy out of the bunch. So again, founding members versus essence, or does founding member equal essence?
I think in that instance, like, there's no doubt that like the stupid thing that they would do with the cage and Tommy Lee playing the drums was like one of their gimmicky things that like people liked.
Yeah.
But vocals for the hair bands were very, very, very. I mean, Cinderella's front man. Like, I can't imagine. I don't even want to imagine Cinderella period anyway.
But they switched a lot of fucking personnel too.
But not front people, did they?
Maybe
I mean,
not.
I have no
I
idea.
don't know. I don't know.
Because like those guys, they lived for like Poison. They lived for that. Bret Michaels was always going to be the one, right? I mean, he was, and God, they were awful live. Like I remember seeing some things on like MTV, like not good execution.
Oh,
live.
dude, Poison was the fucking worst of all of them, as far as I'm concerned. But I mean,
Still, the front man is the front man in those weird spaces.
yeah.
That like the dumb girls that would go want take their shirts off and show them their boobs.
That happens at all concerts that I've ever been to in my life. It doesn't matter how shitty they are.
I will tell you something funny that so like Brian, when I think they were playing a show at Arapahoe because that's where they went to high school. Um, Terry Quinn, who was their bass player, some girl took her panties off and threw them at the Arapahoe High School. So he says, and I have to believe that it's the truth. I mean, it's hard for me to imagine TQ getting a face full of panties, but I mean, what you're saying is true.
I think it absolutely is, and I don't think it's necessarily just musicians. I mean,
you've had a lot of instances where girls just take their panties off and throw them at your face, and just other random things. Oh, you feel like Dave Chappelle? You mean like if Dave Chappelle's up doing a set, somebody's gonna throw their panties at him every now and again?
probably.
Yeah, but that's because.
But I mean, I also know, and I can't remember which author it was, but some author said they just wrote to get laid.
I've heard that actually. Yeah. Who was? Do you remember who?
No, that's what I just said. I can't remember. And fuck, again, I've jammed so much media into my fucking brain. It might have just been some shitty quote from a fucking movie. But I swear it was a fucking author that said that.
I write to get laid.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why they, if you're a shitty rhythm guitar player for a band.
No, but I do know. Okay, sorry, it was a movie. The same movie where it was Busta Rhymes who played the brother, Finding Forrester. Sean Connery said, I write books.
Why do people write books? They write them to get laid.
Right.
Yes.
That's what it was.
You're the dog now, man.
He said somebody else needs to read them. I write them. Okay. So I know, again, we slightly veered off course.
Well, people stick together as bands to get laid too. I mean, there's no doubt about that. Yeah.
Yeah, there was probably a lot of.
I mean, another, the financial and all that kind of stuff. The rock star lifestyle.
Does it? I don't know if it exists anymore. Because, fucking. Was it Dwayne Allman that started doing fucking anti-drug commercials in the fucking late 80s?
Not Dwayne.
Dwight.
Yeah, Dwight? There's no Dwight. Greg
Allman. Maybe. No. It was.
Dwayne is dead. He was dead in 1972 or something like that.
Okay, so it was Greg.
That would have been just because he got caught with some coke or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. But what I'm saying is that, like, the public persona, as far as partying and doing this, I mean, because Randy Rhoads died because of fucking drugs and alcohol, not necessarily because of him taking them, but
he's not dead.
Right.
He faked this.
He's playing with Elvis somewhere.
Yeah.
But lots of them did. Heroin overdoses and all of this other shit. So maybe it doesn't exist anymore, the rock and roll lifestyle. And I don't know, because I'm not a fucking rock and roller, and I don't go to shows anymore.
Well, I mean, you just suggested that even if I was a comic, every now and again I'd have panties thrown on my face.
Yeah.
And I got a big nose, so they'd
catch and swing.
Yeah, there could be some flag concepts playing out right there.
I think the pussy part is true. I don't know if the drinking and partying part is true.
I don't know. I mean, Billy Strings, young William Apostle. He's 28 now, maybe 29. And every time I see him, he's smoking a joint, on stage, he's smoking a joint. He actually did this fucking hilarious. Somebody gave him one of those weird old Casio digital ones, right? Did I show you that thing? So he's screwing around with it, and because you just kind of with this little digital part, right? But you have to actually play the fretboard like it's a fretboard, right? So there's a thing that you can turn on the side of it that puts a fake fucking drum beat, right?
Right, like a Casio SK1 or some
Yeah,
shit.
so he does that, he hits that, and then all of a sudden he starts playing Axel F, right? And then he goes like right into this fucking like bluegrass thing on the fucking on the Casio, because it is one of those Casios. And meanwhile, he's sitting there fucking smoking a joint, just like, I mean, just like a cloud of fucking smoke's coming off his head. No, drugs, whatever, you know. I mean, but the fact of the matter is, he's good friends with Post Malone. Post Malone drinks every night. You're not going to do what Post Malone does unless you know, do a little bit of cocaine
No,
here and there
I'm
every
there
now and
with the
again.
birds
So,
of a feather flock together thing.
so there's probably, and I don't know how much, you know, but he's young. He's 28, you know. I mean, I know that I was a lot more resilient when I was 28.
I never ever fucking snorted coke or did crack, and there were people around me that did it.
But you're not a rock and roll person.
No, but I did live the fucking rock and roll lifestyle for a while.
I remember we were dealing a poker tournament up in Deadwood, and we drank a lot really late that night. It was definitely an Adderall morning, to be sure.
Girls throw underwear at you.
All the time, yeah. When you're a poker dealer.
You're my favorite dealer. I just think, and I don't think it's male or female specific. I think that a certain level of fame gets you certain perks that weren't there before, regardless of whether you were drinking and partying, because the drinking and partying is what I consider the rock and roll lifestyle. The having the menage a trois and shit, that's a perk.
I'm not going to play the designation game anymore.
Okay.
That could definitely just as easily be identified as part of the rock and roll lifestyle as well.
Well, then why the fuck didn't I have some of those?
Because you weren't a part of the rock and roll lifestyle.
Okay, so I just fucking drank and fucking smoked.
You
Like a
you
fish.
have to go and do a song in front of some people first, you know. I mean, you tried to be a comic for 5 minutes, you know.
I did it multiple times.
But you need to have your name on the marquee, you know. You get your name on the marquee, something happens.
I ended up banging that fucking girl in my car.
That fucking girl in my car. That doesn't mean anything to anybody.
Well, she was happy that I was up on stage, is all I'm getting.
Oh, so you did a set one night and you got a little something.
Yeah.
There you go. You're dude.
One time. Of course, I only did it 4 times.
Yeah. Well, you see, you were just kind of inflating things for a second. I did it a bunch of times. Blah blah blah.
No, I said 4 times.
Not the first time you didn't say that. It's all right. You can go back and listen to this later, and then we can talk about it.
No, when I did stand-up comedy as a novice, I wasn't saying that was the rock and roll lifestyle. I was just saying that I used to fucking drink so much that I couldn't fucking see straight, which is what a lot of those guys did and ended up fucking killing themselves.
The rock and roll lifestyle.
Right. Minus the menage a trois.
Like when the drummer, I think it might have been Vince Neil that he was with. They rolled that car, and the drummer for Def Leppard in Conifer when they were all drunk that night, and then he had his arm cut off, and then he became the one-handed drummer.
Yeah, he had to get a beat machine, dude, which at that point you're just doing fucking electronic music. You're not a drummer anymore.
Well, he still used his foot pedals and his one good arm, but yeah, he was cheating.
There was somebody else. I mean, there have been several of them that fucking died because of booze, one way or
another.
Yeah.
That wasn't an isolated. That was just one that was like in Colorado. That was
right.
Like boom, bam.
Did the Def Leppard thing happen here in Colorado?
Conifer, dude, it happened. I'm 98% sure it happened in Conifer.
Wow. All this time, I was fucking oblivious to that.
I don't think it's probably the most important things in the history of the world.
Common knowledge. I'm sure the fucking Def Leppard drummer thinks, fuck that, I'm not going back to Colorado. Those mountain roads are a bitch. You can't drink and drive. All right. So, once again, we veered off course to some degree. Both literally and figuratively. So we're talking about, how did we want to word it?
Well, I put it in the context of that boat, at the beginning. Like, is it still?
No, not this show. Next show.
Oh, next show. It's so.
I know what we're talking about. This show.
The political economy. The way that I think about it is the political economy of prisons. Like prisons, like the business of prisons, what goes on inside of prisons.
We don't really want to know what goes on inside
relative to the structure, like to where, I mean, some of the stuff that we were talking about even during the last one with regards to the military industrial complex and whatnot, there was a suggestion that incarceration was actually a part of these markets that were being constructed as a way of disciplining populations that got out of line. So what does that look like on the ground? What are these businesses? You made some sort of a weird comment about these private ones in southern Colorado. Like, these are the questions that we've got to get deeper into. We started talking about them the last time, but we need to look deeper at the business of the incarceration industry.
Okay, so we're talking about prisons again, but I think last time we just barely scratched the surface when we were talking about prisons. So, like Darren said, we're going to talk about more of the infrastructure stuff, more of what goes on here and there, maybe how things work, budgets, how it might, connect to that fucking crime bill that Biden passed in fucking 94.
And how that might tie to some real conflicts of interest when it comes to profit for incarceration, essentially, because these are things that are clearly linked today.
Yeah.
Business, you don't want to let people out of prison because you're making money out of them. It's like Andy in Shawshank Redemption to the 100th degree,
Which we've kind of linked them together, and I'm sure you guys realize this by now, is that all of our episodes are kind of tied together.
Connected, yeah.
But that isn't because of us. It's just because everything really is tied together.
It's all part of the same human field of existence.
So we're going to talk about the prison industrial complex, or prisons, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. But
not a lot of connections between dead people and bands continuing on in prisons, though.
Depending on how you look at it.
We could probably find some connections there.
So we could talk about drugs and how that relates to drug policy.
Okay, drugs, okay.
Or booze and DUIs.
I remember Johnny Cash getting busted and getting sent up the river a couple of times. They let him out pretty quick. They don't let me out too quick.
He never, actually spent time in Folsom, which I thought was hysterical when he said that.
What?
That he never spent time in Folsom.
Well, somebody else wrote one of those songs. One of them he didn't write.
Well, he may not have written it, but he fucking made that motherfucker soar.
The song? Yeah, dude, Johnny Cash he's a bad motherfucker.
All right, well, I think we're at the fucking end of the line.
Time to get off the bus.
So, again, prisons.
720-334-ROLL.
shortbusdebateclub at yahoo.com.
We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know what the fuck you think.
Right, John King.
Later.